professional medical society in America is the American Institute of Homeopathy. And not to be outdone, in retaliation, the AMA was founded in 1847. This is where the conspiracy really gets going. This is a politicization of medicine. John D. Rockefeller got involved in the struggle. See, and all of you know he's part of one of those names, you know, that you always see in conjunction with the Illuminati and the elite and what have you. And he was trying to sell crude oil in bottles as a patent medicine. And it wasn't going very well. And he got the idea, well, what if we created a whole chemical medicine industry to rival what was going on with the herbalists? And so Rockefeller and Carnegie poured millions into the AMA to bolster chemical medicine. They took out advertising. They owned their own newspapers, some of these rich guys, and so they attacked the herbalists, they attacked the eclectics and the homeopaths. There were some other blows that happened about this time to U.S. health. One of the worst was the use of the steel roller mill to refine whole wheat grains and sugar cane, thus creating white flour and white sugar, two of the most toxic substances anybody ever has consumed in the history of mankind. Also in early 20th century, manufacturers learned how to hydrogenate oils. And of course, that has caused lots of problems. 1930s, they used more toxic solvents to get even more oil out of plants. Now, this is kind of strange. Because of what was being done with the steel roller mill, doctors even started noticing an extraordinary thing. The people that were eating these bread products were suffering from malnutrition. They weren't getting any vitamins because these breads were nutritionally inert. In fact, you can put some white flour on a shelf and those bugs won't eat it because they know better. So the grocers love it. It'll stay there forever. That stuff will outlast the pyramids, you know, because nothing will eat it except us, you know. And so they said, well, let's add B vitamins to an iron to the bread. You know, and how many of you can remember when Wonder Bread first came out, you know, build strong bodies 8 ways, you know, and then it was build strong bodies 12 ways. And it's a joke. You know, I heard a doctor say this. He said, imagine if you were walking down an alley and some guy mugged you. He took all your money, he took all your clothes, and then gave you back your socks. That's what they did to Wonder Bread. You know, you're walking around naked, but you got your socks. That's about what it is. This stuff is totally useless as food. You could get more nutrition eating the wrapper. Okay, so they passed this Enrichment Act. And then finally, in 1950s, and this is within almost all of our lifetimes, food processing reduced the ratio between potassium and sodium in most foods. Okay, now we have the coming of the drug lords. And the use of chemical drugs got worse because Rockefeller got together with a big German chemical conglomerate called IG Farben. And IG Farben are the wonderful people that brought us mustard gas and Zyklon B, the gas that was used in the concentration camps. They also brought us, and you see, if you take all the chemical companies today, the drug companies, you know, Eli Lilly, Merck, and so on, and trace them back, they all go back ultimately. The head of the octopus is IG Farben. And so they came up with the idea of using the waste products from the petrochemical industry and turning them into medicine. And what's interesting is you'd be astonished at how much of the medicine today, even the over-the-counter stuff, is entirely made out of petroleum. Like, for example, if you buy Centrum vitamins and take those, the body will look at them and say, what is this? This is petroleum. I can't use this. And basically, it will go out in the draft, as it says in the King James Bible. And all these ideas were born out of the idea that they could create a magic bullet drug that would cure anything. And, of course, out of that came antibiotics. You know, the wonder drug, penicillin, that would cure everything. And, of course, now we know what happened. We started using it. We started overusing it. And now we're in a big mess because we've started getting these superbugs, that are resistant to penicillin, to oxacillin, to tetracycline. You know, okay, now these drugs are toxic by definition. The FDA says a drug has to have side effects or it can't be a drug. So even the most benign drug you can think of, aspirin, for example. We all know aspirin can cause stomach problems. It can cause bleeding ulcers if you take too much of it. It can cause your blood to get too thin. Now, this is interesting. The definition of pharmaceutical medicine is giving patients sublethal doses of toxic medicines, of toxic chemicals. So in other words, you're giving them just under what would kill them, and that's medicine. So much for the Hippocratic Oath. If you go to the PDR, which is this huge book, the Physician's Desk Reference, it's like the Bible that doctors use. 150 pages talk about the good things drugs do. 2,850 pages talk about the bad things drugs do. So you can see it's not a real good trade-off. Now, why do we do it then? Well, because there's a huge amount of money involved. Huge amount of money. In the U.S. alone, the drug companies have revenues of over $100 billion. And internationally, it amounts to 3 times that amount. And with that kind of money, these companies can exert enormous influence. You've heard the golden rule, them that has the gold makes the rules. The drug lobby has incredible power in Washington, D.C. And the pharmaceutical giants additionally endow medical schools with millions, thus exerting control over what doctors also what doctors earn. Huge advertising budgets also. They will see, and I'm sure if any of you watch TV or read magazines, it's like every other ad is a drug ad. You know, and I just love those ads because on the first page, you see these happy people out in nature, you know, and they're all glowing with health, and the colors are vibrant and wonderful and beautiful. And, you know, and then you turn the page, in this little eeny-weeny, like 7-point type print, there's like column after column after column of all the bad stuff that can happen to you if you take the drug. But they know, most people, especially if you're like me and you're over 50, you can't even read that. You know, it's so tiny. So anyway, then we get into the infamous iron triangle, which I've already alluded to. The FDA allows, in fact, encourages drug companies to make enormous, enormous profits. The people who work for the FDA later go to work for the pharmaceutical companies. The FDA seems to exist. It's supposed to be here to protect us. It's supposed to protect our food. It's supposed to protect our water. It's supposed to protect, you know, us from bad drugs, too, certainly. Is it doing that? No. In fact, we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But what it does do is the FDA does prevent us from accessing a lot of really important information about herb supplements and drugs. And they control what the medical students learn. Also, there's a lot of government censorship. See, drug companies have no economic interest in promoting herbs because they can't make any money off them. See, you can't you can't patent an herb. Why? God made the herb. Like you can patent Tylenol because some company made Tylenol. But you can't patent echinacea or golden seal because it's just out there in the field. Anybody can grow it. Anybody can pick it. And so there's no money in it to speak of compared to the amount of money you can make off of a prescription drug. Therefore, the FDA has rules that prohibit people from learning how vitamins and herbs can help their conditions. Additionally, all the training most MDs receive is pharmaceutical-based unless they take the initiative and spend their own hard-earned cash.